What if the person who spent years trying to make you feel small was secretly depending on you far more than you ever depended on them? Most people never see this truth. When a narcissistic person tries to tear someone down, it doesn't come from real strength. It often comes from fear. Fear of losing control. Fear of losing influence. Fear of facing the emptiness they work so hard to hide. For a long time, you may have believed their version of the story. You may have questioned yourself, wondered if you were too sensitive, too demanding, or somehow responsible for the problems in the relationship. But emotionally healthy people don't need to diminish others to feel valuable. They don't build themselves up by tearing someone else down. What many survivors eventually discover is that the entire dynamic depended on their reactions. Every argument, every explanation, every attempt to be understood kept the cycle alive. When you hurt, they felt important. When you chased answers, they felt powerful. When you stayed despite the pain, they convinced themselves they were irreplaceable. Then something changes. You begin healing. You stop explaining yourself. You stop seeking validation from someone who never intended to give it freely. You start trusting your own judgment again. And without realizing it, you remove the very thing that once fueled the unhealthy dynamic. Your attention, your energy, your emotional investment. This is why they may suddenly reach out, make promises, act differently, or try to pull you back into old conversations. It can look like reconciliation, but often what they truly want is reassurance that they still have influence over your emotions. Because when you stop reacting, they lose something they relied on. Not love, control. The deepest shift happens when you no longer need answers from them. You stop waiting for an apology. You stop hoping they'll finally understand the impact of their actions. You stop needing their recognition to validate your experience. That's when real freedom begins. Old tactics lose their power because you've stepped outside the game. They can't create guilt if you trust yourself. They can't create confusion if you've found clarity. They can't control a person who no longer seeks approval. And that's what makes your growth so powerful. Not because you're trying to defeat them, not because you're seeking revenge, but because you're finally choosing yourself. As you rebuild your self-respect, establish healthy boundaries, and focus on your own peace, something remarkable happens. You stop measuring your worth through someone else's opinion. You stop carrying responsibilities that never belong to you. You stop trying to save people who refuse to help themselves. And little by little, you return to the person you were always meant to be. The truth is, your greatest victory isn't whether they regret what happened. It isn't whether they struggle without you. It isn't whether they ever change. Your greatest victory is no longer needing any of those things. You don't become stronger because they become weaker. You become stronger because you finally come home to yourself. And when that happens, the story no longer ends with their downfall. It ends with your freedom. If this message resonated with you, be sure to like this video, subscribe to TF, and continue watching for more insights on healing, self-respect, and personal growth. Your best chapter begins the moment you stop asking someone else to define your worth. This content is intended for education, awareness, and self-reflection. It discusses common behavioral patterns and relationship dynamics and is not meant to diagnose or label any individual.